With the brand new contact update, we've gotten a whole host of new content, brand new blocks, and tons more, which you'll get to see right here. So if you want to experience this brand new content, all you have to do is go into the customization menu on a world, scroll down until you find random encounters and planetary encounters, though you're probably not going to have to worry about that because it's turned on by default. Then you just have to explore around the world, and maybe you'll find one of these unidentified signals, which will lead you to one of these encounters. Other than that, you'll just have to explore and see what you can find hiding in the world. Alright, so let's start going from left to right, and we're starting off with the Prototech drill, which, as you can see compared to the normal one, is absolutely massive. A 3x3x4. I have to say, it looks absolutely gorgeous. Though it sadly does not come in a small grid variant, it is still going to be probably a lot more effective. As we can see, 50,000 liters worth of space compared to a normal drill's. Okay, so it's not much more, given the increased size of this thing, but it is probably going to drill a lot faster. Now, moving on to the right, we are coming over to the Prototech refinery, which has a small grid version. Would you look at that? Now it looks to be the same size as the normal refinery, other than the fact that it only has 2 conveyor ports, both of them being on the back, and no space for modules. But it of course makes up for that with having an insane speed and yield rate, which the normal refinery cannot achieve. Not to mention that it has a small grid variant, which didn't exist in the game up until now. The best you could do was have a small grid survival kit, but now you got yourself an actual refinery. Sadly though, the same does not go for the Prototech assembler. Now, it is quite a bit larger compared to the normal one, and it has one on the side, as we can see right there. So it has 2 conveyor ports as well, which is a bit less than the normal assembler, but I'm guessing that it also makes up for that with... Oh, actually no. It has the same production speed and power efficiency, but it is able to make all the Prototech blocks. Actually, it is only able to make the Prototech blocks, which is interesting, or well, Prototech components. But that's still very interesting. So the normal assembler cannot make it, but the Prototech assembler can only make it. That is really interesting. Well, either way, let's move on to this bad boy. This thing is absolutely massive. It's the brand new Prototech thruster. Now, we can already see it's driven by power instead of hydrogen or any other form of fuel source. Comes in a small grid variant, both of which are absolutely huge. That is a normal hydrogen thruster. Even putting a atmospheric next to this thing will be absolutely dwarfed in size. But yeah, this thing should surely have a lot of thrust output. Curious how much power that thing is going to use up. That is going to be interesting to see. Next up, we have the Prototech gyroscope. Now, compared to the old boring gyroscope, they're actually animated. Just look at that, both the large grid and small grid variant. Now, the small grid variant is a fair bit bigger compared to the teeny tiny vanilla one, being a 2x2x2, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and I bet it's going to be a lot more effective than one of those. Look at these blocks. Just the design, the gold trimming and everything. Ooh. Yeah, we are messing with some rich people. Whoever made Prototech. And speaking of Prototech, the next thing is the Prototech battery. Another large and small grid combo here. Now this one is a fair bit larger compared to the normal battery. However, if we have a look inside the output, 48 megawatts max output, compared to the normal batteries, 12. That is 4 times as much. And if we're looking at this little battery, which is frankly just one sliver of this, it has a whole 2.8 megawatts maximum output, which compared to a normal battery is less. It is a fair bit less, that's true, but this is a lot smaller. It still has that high amount of output. Now it does have a very high input, which is interesting, but it has 2 megawatts stored power compared to this battery's 1 megawatt. So you're trading max output for capacity and also a much quicker charge time. Does that actually translate? Yeah, max stored power on this compared to... Oh! Okay. Right. Prototech are not messing around. That is 18 megawatt hours of stored power compared to 3. Yeah, these blocks, they are insane. Now, speaking of insane, we got ourselves a new jump drive. Finally. And look at this. It even has a little access panel. Like this could be nicely integrated with some of the other blocks. Yeah, okay. So the Prototech jump drive has a max jump distance of 6,000 kilometers. Okay, that's better. So 6,000 kilometers compared to a normal jump drive's 2 kilometers. Or not 2,000. But this thing is a fair bit bigger, being a 3x3x3 rather than a 3x3x2. However, it comes in a small grid variant. Yes, finally, you can have small grid jump drives on your ships, and this thing looks absolutely gorgeous. So now if we're looking at the small grid jump drive, we can see it has a maximum jump range of 500 kilometers. That is pretty good. Going from not being able to jump a small grid to being able to bring it 500 kilometers, that is pretty darn cool. Not to mention in such a compact package too. It's a 3x3x4. That is actually fairly small. Having 2 access panels on either side, or well, a single access panel. Let's see. Oh, it's still charging. Hang on, we gotta speed this up. Hold on. There we go. How long is it gonna take now? 7 minutes? Alright, I'm gonna come back to this. Moving on. We finally got it. A inset connector. That is right, and the cool thing about it, it has a conveyor port on the side and the bottom. So you're getting 2 input ports compared to 1 before, and you also get a flush exterior compared to the bumpy, rigidy exterior of the normal one. And it looks gorgeous. It fits very nicely together with the new conveyor blocks that we've gotten recently, and will look pretty darn good in, I think, most of the floor designs people come up with. Now there is also a small grid variant, which has conveyor ports on all sides, just like the standard one. So the main difference is that it's encased in a hull. Now I think that it would make sense if this thing... No, it takes the exact same amount of components, so we're looking at the same integrity. Okay, and then of course you have a inset teeny tiny version, which looks absolutely adorable. And again, we'll have a port on the bottom and on the side. But now we are moving on to the Contact DLC, which adds quite a lot, including 2 new turret variants for the rocket turret and the Gatling turret respectively. I mean, just look at these. Finally, we got something a bit more modern looking. Something that fits along with the new assault cannons and everything. You just look at this Gatling. It has 3 barrels. This is basically just a sieves. What the? Okay. That is amazing. And just the exterior and everything. Not to mention we get small grid versions too. Look at that. Finally something that looks a bit better and might integrate a bit better into some hulls. Though, we can see that we don't have conveyor ports on all sides. At least on the Gatling one. Compared to the vanilla Gatling turret, which we can see has... What is happening there? Anyhow, we can see it has conveyor ports on all sides. So you're sacrificing a bit of conveyor access for better aesthetics. And then, of course, we have the small grid variant, which I notice I've turned around. But look at this thing. It looks amazing, and instead of having just a single little turret with 2 barrels, it has 2 rocket canisters. Now, if we move on a bit further to the right, we got ourselves a new square piston. That was the thing that I was expecting the least, but it is very nice to have. And if we extend it, oh yes, look at that. That looks absolutely beautiful. Kind of reminds me a bit of something you would see in Satisfactory, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. And you get a small grid version. Teeny tiny little small grid version. Absolutely beautiful. Moving on further right, we got 2 new gates. We got essentially the big gate, but for small people. Pretty cool, 4 blocks wide. It is looking rather sharp. And then if you're not a fan of it being so wide, not to worry, you can get one that's a bit more square and a bit more tall. And it actually lifts upwards. That is pretty darn cool. Just look at this thing. Oh, the amount of stuff that people are going to make with these new gates and all these new blocks, it is going to blow my mind. Which these new antennas also did. I've been wanting an antenna like this for so long, and we finally got it. I mean, just... It is so small and compact. It is 3 blocks tall, or not tall, but wide, which is essentially the same as the new compact antenna, other than that you actually can attach blocks on the top and bottom and effectively almost every side compared to this one. So you have a bit more flexibility when it comes to placement. And then you also get a small grid variant, which we didn't of the compact antenna. Though to be fair, the standard antenna was fairly small on the small grid version. Yeah, so this one is 1 block bigger, but I think it might look a bit better. Moving on, small grids got a bunch of love. We got a bunch of brand new decorative blocks and even some functional for small grids. We got ourselves a mic. I didn't realize they actually opened. Either way, we got a microwave, which is looking pretty sweet. So now you can warm up your space burritos anywhere you go. We got ourselves an oven, an actual oven, with a nice little top and everything, so you can make the kitchen of your dreams in your small grid. We got a nice little sink, a refrigerator, which actually has storage. Wait, do the others have storage? No, unfortunately not. But the fridge does. So that is pretty sweet. A coffee machine, which, I mean, look at some of those details. What's this say there? Hang on. Got a cosmic coffee. Look at that. And with what, a little pressure gauge and then tiers of coffee. You can either get the minimum tier, the next tier, or the elite tier. That is looking pretty sweet. And then we got ourselves a small grid bed, which you cannot lay down on apparently unless it is powered. Let's do that. It is powered. What do you mean? Okay. So hang on, where's my spectator cam? I need to see this. Oh yes. Look at that. So it is effectively like some of the new beds that we've gotten for large grid, but now for small grid. I did not mean to get build vision up. Yeah, look at that. So now we actually have both cryopods and beds for small grid. Which is stunning. Next up, we got a brand new media panel where we can, of course, put scripts and whatnot on it, like the clocks and jukebox GUI, and it can play sounds. It can play a lot of sounds. Now it does also, there was also some revised sounds for the sound block. So I think alert might be one. Yep. Let's see. Do we have alert 2? Was that revised? Yeah, I think so. And then alert 3. Interesting. Okay. I like that. What is drone huge? Okay, that's some ominous stuff. We don't need that. Next up is the first aid kit for small grid. Or first aid cabinet, where it actually has an inventory, so you can put some of those med kits and med packs. And it looks, honestly, pretty darn sweet. Got ourselves a little health simple hole to open. And yeah, just the internals, once again, looks absolutely stunning. Now to a more functional block, at least one functional block. We have the bridge helm in the brand new bridge block set, I guess we would call it. Like bridge windows. And this thing, oh, this looks awesome. If you've ever wanted to be as close to the glass on your large grids as possible, this is the block for you. And just look at it. You are ready to go. You got... Oh, this thing is gorgeous. And it fits so nicely in. It'll fit along with half blocks and slopes, and it's just... Oh, yeah. Now, of course, along with this, you're also getting more bridge windows. We have some sides right here, which look absolutely spectacular. Then we have some more sides. These are angled, much similar to some of the angled slopes that we have in the game. And then we have, well, like a corner-ish piece. Oh, yes. Now, you can actually walk underneath it, ever so slightly. That's pretty nice. So basically, we just got a bunch of bridge windows that'll slot in nicely together with other blocks that we already have. But they look fantastic. Honestly, the bridges that people will make, it is going to be very interesting to see. And we have that version, which is the same sort of version that we had with the Control C, but both with a floor, without a floor, and then with actually a usable console with 3 buttons and a screen. Now, on the screen, can we? Yes, we can. We can actually put stuff on the screen. Fantastic, because on the last DLC, the Signals DLC, we got a bunch of new blocks, but we couldn't really program the LCDs at all. At least a lot of them. But we got floodlights. Yes, lighting up your base will now be, well, a lot more aesthetic, to say the least. I mean, looking at it, you get all sorts of different variants, both large grid and small grid. You actually get more small grid variants compared to large grid, but to be fair, they all look pretty darn good anyway. So we have some angled inwards. We have one angled down. And then, of course, a straight version. So that will look absolutely gorgeous as like a ceiling light looking down. And then we have one for small grid that is diagonal, and then one that just faces straight down. So once again, pretty darn sweet. Now if I can place down a little control panel, let's see if I can find one of the floodlights. Is it turned on already? Hold on. It is. So it is effectively, looking at this radius, it is effectively like a spotlight. So if we just, make it nighttime. Then if we grab one of these floodlights, put it like that. Oh yeah, they are actually floodlights. They shoot out lights as far as the eye can see. So, actually, we have got technically brand new spotlights, which all look gorgeous, much like this captain's desk. I mean, finally, we got a proper desk for captain's quarters, with a screen, a nice surface, a big old keyboard. Oh, look at that, they replaced the Windows key with a little engineer. That is gorgeous. Now, the question is, can we actually program the LCD? Oh, you can. So you can put all sorts of, if you have any image to LCD converters, you can put whatever you want on this. Absolutely beautiful. And I believe they have an inventory, don't they? Yes, they do. So you can hide some guns in some of the drawers. Oh yeah, you can actually access the drawers. That is pretty sweet. Each and every one. That is beautiful. Now the last new block in the Contact DLC is a brand new cargo container. Oh yes, this is the modular cargo container with 10,000 liters worth of space. If we get ourselves one of the, let's see, a large cargo container, we can see that it has 15,000 liters, so it is a fair bit bigger in terms of volume, which confuses me a little bit because it seems like this thing is actually larger than this in overall volume, because this is a 5 by 5 by 5, and this is 5 by 3 by, what's that, 7? So this thing is technically larger than that in volume, but fits less. I'm not sure if that's the intention, but it looks pretty darn good. And compared to this one, actually has 4 large conveyor ports. And of course, 2 small. So that is pretty sweet. Now before we finish off with all the blocks, we got some additions to the Signals DLC. Except for that cockpit, but we'll get back to that. We got some new bay windows. So we didn't really have a inverted or inside diagonal edge. Well, now we do. You also get a small grid variant. This one has tipped over, but it is a diagonal similar to that one. And then we got some inverted corners, which look, oh yes. So now we can make a few more complex window shapes compared to when we first got the Signals DLC. And this is of course being added to the Signals DLC for free. Then the last 2 additions to the Signals DLC are the brand new truss blocks. So we got ourselves a diagonal, which I think we can actually stack if we just get ourselves the truss blocks. Can we? Oh, yeah, so they fit very nicely, and yep, you can stack them, although it won't become flush. But I guess that's fine. That's a sacrifice we're willing to make. but it allows you to finally go from a offset to a center. And we got ourselves a actual small corner for the center truss pillars, because previously we only had a corner for the offset truss pillars, but now we got a smaller corner. That is absolutely fantastic to see. Oh, accidentally removed that. Won't be needing it. Now, the last new block in this update is this new flush cockpit, and it is gorgeous. Having conveyor ports on practically all sides. Does it actually have one underneath? Let's find out. It does. This might be the ultimate cockpit when it comes to conveyor ports. Not to mention the size, it's actually pretty small. Okay, it fits between... It is the same size as the industrial cockpit, I believe. Yeah, the industrial cockpit might be a bit bigger. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, so this thing slots nicely in between something like the industrial cockpit, fighter cockpit, and other cockpits like the cab cockpit and whatnot. If we look inside, you have a very clear and great view, absolutely fantastic, and a beautiful center console with actually only 2 LCDs, surprisingly enough, because the other ones, yeah, those 2 small ones, much like the desks that we got last update, are not customizable. So, yep, cannot use them. But this is a pretty sweet cockpit. But it is not getting added to the signals pack. The way you obtain this is you gotta go and sign up to the Keen newsletter. And you can do that very simply through the main menu on Space Engineers. Just put in your email and just tick the 2 tick boxes, and then you will get this cockpit. So pretty simple. It's nice that everyone can get this, though it is a pretty cheap way to get more subscribers to the newsletter. But yes, that's about it for the new blocks, and this might be one of the, if not the biggest update when it comes to just the sheer amount of content. Not just blocks, but content. And with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. Sorry for being absent for so long, but there's been a few hiccups in real life, but hopefully more videos are coming soon. So if you enjoyed this little update overview, then why don't you go ahead and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Ta-ta.